Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 61. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us here for this Wednesday show. A pretty busy show, Dave. A lot of roster moves, some familiar faces coming back to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and a new one as well, too, and kind of the, some injuries to talk about. And, obviously got a starting quarterback in concussion protocol and bowl season getting started. Tomorrow, right? What's today? No, I guess it'd be Friday is the going to be the first set of couple of bowl games there on top of it. And not too far off now is the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl. So let's get to it. Lot to talk about.
Absolutely. Just really quickly, since you mentioned college football, I know that you were a really big Mike Leach fan, and to hear the news of his passing yesterday, super sad, super sudden, obviously. And I think, as many people have said, one of one was Mike Leach.
And let me I know it's probably not going to be popular at the top of the podcast here, but why it's kind of such a big deal for me, and I guess other people too. Mike Leach was that guy is one of a kind, right? I mean, you want to talk about interviews that are kind of must see every time, that easily get circulated on Twitter and go viral. It's him, and I'd like to think that, or at least my wife says I'm a very peculiar type person, and we all to our core have individuality and that kind of stuff. And Mike Leach marched to the beat of a different drummer, and I can really relate to that. He was way off the path and unconventional and that kind of thing. So that's one way that I was attracted to him over the years. Second, man, the air raid offense, you've heard me talk about it several times, over the years, and just fascinating what him and Hal Mumme created many years ago, and kind of got revitalized me personally with that last season with Nevada, and obviously what they were doing over there. The Mumme kid obviously was on that staff over there, and Nevada obviously had Carson Strong, and just a lot of synergy around that really had me. And obviously I live in Las Vegas, just another reason, and because those games mostly at night was yet another reason to kind of pay attention. So it kind of reinvigorated that, and going back and watching some old coaching clinics with Mike Leach talking about air raid offense and all like that. So I was kind of attached to Leach for several reasons, altogether. And man, it just goes to show you, man, you just never know, right? You never know when it's your time. And, look at Grant, what's his last name?
Wall.
Wall. I mean, 40-something years old, and overseas covering the World Cup and all, and I evidently that ended up being a brain or some sort of aneurysm or something, like that. So, and Mike Leach, obviously, I think it was a heart attack and all. You just never know, and it makes you kind of reflect. And I'm so grateful that you and I get to do what we do, right? For a living there. And I wouldn't choose anything else to do in my life other than this. And just once again, so grateful. So it makes you kind of reflect and be thankful for what you have, and just let you know that, man, at any given time, you could be gone, So yeah, sad, news about Mike Leach passing.
Definitely. But through the tragedy, great to hear some of the stories shared that I never heard before about Mike Leach, and people, so many people had met him, and just the wild stories that kind of showed the person that he was. And so you smile through the sadness there. But anyway, at the risk of
real quick, three of the top 5 Heisman candidates this year were all coached by kind of Leach disciples, if you will.
I did not know that.
Yeah. That's something that I've learned within the last, obviously 24 hours there and all. So, I hate that we dominate top of the show, but I mean, it's good for us to talk about things that are near and dear to our heart, I think. And, obviously this is football related and news related. So with that, we can now move on from the Mike Leach story.
Sure. We'll get into some Steelers talk here. Pittsburgh very busy yesterday with some unofficial moves as of 10:30 Wednesday morning, but probably by the time you're listening to this, these moves will be made official. The team signing 2 players yesterday, reportedly. That's Jonathan Marshall, defensive lineman, off the Jets practice squad. That'll replace Chris Wormley, who, according to NFL Network, unfortunately tore his ACL, so obviously out for the season. And then just a short time after that news came across, Adam Schefter reporting Steelers were signing, reuniting, I should say, with outside linebacker Ola Adeni. So he's apparently being signed. I don't know for sure if that's to the 53. I assume that it is, but that move also has not been made official. So a couple of front 7 guys coming to this team ahead of the Carolina Panthers game.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, they did not claim Ola off of waivers, so he cleared waivers. So that's a good point. But yeah, I mean, you would think that it might be the 53-man roster, but it very well could be practice squad. They could maybe make a move there. Malik Reed's been dealing with, kind of a back injury, right? I mean, would it be out of the question for Malik Reed to have to go to IR, as a reciprocal move? Probably not. You wouldn't think that this team would carry 5 outside linebackers at this point, would you?
No, you wouldn't. So again, we'll see if it's practice squad. Maybe he gets signed to the practice squad and then elevated later on Saturday in terms of that kind of thing. We're not quite sure, but if he is being signed to the 53, my guess would be something is going on with Malik Reed, sort of that surprise inactive, when they had that back issue earlier in the week, but we're just all kind of waiting and seeing. And so what can he provide to this team right now? Number 3 rotational outside linebacker to some degree. It's not going to move the needle too much overall, but whenever he got waived by the Titans on, I guess that would have been Monday, you kind of felt like, hey, maybe there's a chance he comes back to Pittsburgh.
Right. And like you said, it's not going to move the needle much there. And, more than anything, a depth thing and, probably 6, 7, 8 snaps a game, something along those lines. Yeah, if even that, all depending on how, probably the health of TJ Watt moving forward here. Jonathan Marshall, an interesting prospect. Boy, people get bent out of shape sometimes when, not sometimes, a lot of times when Steelers make low-level moves like this and get guys off practice squads late in the season. But immediately when you go back and look at at Jonathan Marshall's measurables, looking at him, I said, man, this guy had to check a lot of the boxes on the Alex Kozora, what do they look for scale. And now he didn't do, I think it was because of the whole COVID thing maybe and all like that, but he didn't do shuttle and 3-cone time. So there's none of that to kind of report. But everything else, this guy is this is a classic Steelers measurable signing, right?
Yeah, I mean, he checks the boxes because, according to Kentley Platt, who we talked about come draft time, and his math bomb and an RAS score, which basically just measures how athletic you are relative to your size and to your position. I mean, he's one of the top testers of all time. He had a 9.99 RAS score when he came out of the draft in 2021. And so that's an elite level number, according to Kentley Platt. That's the second best score of any defensive tackle since 1987. And so he better check those boxes because, he just has some crazy testing overall. Now, in terms of his play, I admit I haven't seen much. It seems like maybe a bit better pass rusher than run stuffer. 6th-round pick of the Jets out of Arkansas, played 4 games for them last year, a couple of tackles, had not appeared in a game with them this year, been on the practice squad. And so there isn't a whole lot of body of work in the NFL to talk about outside of some preseason tape. But obviously with Wormley's injury, this team looking for some extra D-line help. That's the move they've made.
I looked just briefly at some highlights and stuff for him, and he's a 1-gap penetrator. type. He's got some quickness, and he should with those measurables, right? So
Right.
I haven't dug too deep into him outside of just looking at some highlights and all. We all know that you shouldn't scout highlight wise, but maybe at some point within the next few days, one of our guys will do kind of a deeper dive on him, do a film room on him, what the Steelers are potentially getting in with him, and why not take a chance on a kid like this, right?
Right, and it looks like the move's actually just been made official by the team here. Marshall signed in the 53-man roster, and Chris Wormley officially placed on injured reserve again. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport tweeting yesterday the news that we feared, torn ACL in that left knee for Wormley, and so obviously he's out for the year and very unlikely to be ready for 2023, a free agent to be, and so that's unfortunate for him and his market. And I'm not sure what his future exactly is, whether that's Pittsburgh or somewhere else, but the injury is going to unfortunately dominate that conversation right now.
Right. And real quick about Jonathan Marshall, I don't know if it's a 1 or 2 year deal, but it really doesn't matter because when you sign a guy off another team's practice squad, he's got to stay with you for at least 3 games. So this guy's probably going to last out the season on the 53-man roster, you would think. And assuming he does, if it's a 1 year deal with him, he would be an exclusive rights free agent, and then thus can easily be added back to the offseason, easily re-signed with an exclusive rights tender. Or if it's a 2 year deal, obviously it's going to be minimum salary on top of it there. So this is a guy, Jonathan Marshall, that will probably be on the off-season roster one way or the other.
Yeah, you would expect that. And so maybe he'll get a trial run here these last 4 weeks, last month of the season, and we'll get some tape on him, I would assume, and go from there. But obviously the Steelers defensive line has not played well enough. That was shown in the last 6 quarters, starting with the second half of the Falcons game, the entire Ravens game. Alualu's played poorly. Adams has not played particularly well. You lose Wormley. Loudermilk to me has not played well in his limited action. And so you're just trying to find some outside help of some guys that may be able to help. But as you pointed out last night, what does it say about a guy like Carlos Davis, in terms of what they think of him, not promoting him, instead going outside the organization to bring in extra help?
Yeah, and Wren still on the practice squad or back on the practice squad as well too. So and I kind of pointed this out in my terrible take yesterday, kind of talking about the future of Chris Wormley. We both agree that it's a strong likelihood now at this point that Wormley sometime during the summer is going to be back re-signed for depth. More than likely, assuming everything goes good with rehab, we would kind of expect a move like that to happen, right?
That would make the most amount of sense. Again, you're probably talking June, I guess, at the earliest. That kind of thing would happen when you kind of see how the rehab's going and things like that. Maybe before, mini camp in May, but I haven't thought about it too much just because the injury is going to, obviously impact things so significantly.
And look, I mean, he's an okay player. I mean, obviously a depth guy. It won't shake the meter too terribly much, but I mean, look at the state of this defensive line right now, right? I mean, who is Montravius Adams? At this point, and can you guarantee that he's going to be on the 53 next year for starters?
No, you can't. Again, I mentioned this a while back, just based on some of the free agent type stuff and retirements and things like that. This D-line room probably is going to look a whole lot different. And then based off their recent play, you can basically rubber stamp that in terms of Ogunjobi, a free agent, Wormley, a free agent, now injured, Alualu's going to retire, Cam Hayward, another year older, and everything else that comes along with that. So,
and Loudermilk, not a guarantee.
Right. So, I mean, in terms of how this D-line looks next year, it's really hard to say. I think there'll be a lot of turnover. Again, trench play will be the focus of this team this offseason.
And that's why you go out, and get a kid like this in Jonathan Marshall, right? To just see what maybe he can provide some depth for you.
Right. Now we'll see if he's active against the Panthers, if he has enough time. They went heavy on the D-line for the Ravens game because A, it was the Ravens game, and B, Malik Reed was down. And so that created an extra spot there. The Panthers are a pretty run-heavy team, so you would expect maybe all the defensive linemen to be active, or everybody but Marshall. We'll just have to wait and see. But I assume we'll see him playing on Sundays sometime before this year is over.
All right. Once again, maybe we'll get a film room up on him here in the next few days.
Yeah, I mean, again, the film's pretty limited, so I just kind of go in with a clean slate. But we'll have to see, and we'll see what the injuries, injury report kind of says, and Malik Reed's status with Ola, and how that goes. So I'm really interested to see just what happens to Ola in terms of, is he 53, is he practice squad, and what is the corresponding move. We knew when Marshall got signed, okay, Wormley, Tomlin already announced he's going to have surgery, so you knew that move. This one is a little more uncertain.
Okay.
All right, let's go to Mike Tomlin, his Tuesday press conference. And again, mentioning some of those injuries. That is Kenny Pickett still in concussion protocol. Mentioned Chris Wormley with a knee surgery, Pat Freiermuth with a foot. Freiermuth should be okay, pretty minor overall. Big story here is Pickett. Tomlin, just as you would expect, saying working through protocol. We'll have to wait and see. More interesting, though, Tomlin, of course, was asked if Pickett cannot play, who is next in line? Is it Mitch Trubisky, the way that he was and has been all year since being benched, or Mason Rudolph? And Tomlin did not commit, saying both guys will get reps in practice, which is typical when, 1 and 2 if Pickett is out. And he's taking it day by day. So he's leaving the door open, which is certainly notable.
Yeah, but he also left the door open during training camp, supposedly as well, too, with the pecking order. And we all knew how that was going to play out, right?
Sure. But now that it's in season, things are settled.
Is this just courtesy, or is there a legitimate chance that if Kenny Pickett does not play in this game, that Mason Rudolph could start?
I mean, I think the door's at least open. Tomlin could have very easily shut down that conversation. He's been generally pretty adamant about pecking order in terms of quarterbacks. This is our starter. This is the backup. Here's how this is going to be ever since the season began. And now that door's been open. Tomlin's kind of leaving it a lot more vague, a lot more up in the air. And so I'm not going to dismiss that possibility. I'll still proceed with the assumption right now Trubisky will start if Pickett is not ready to go, but I can't guarantee that at this point based off of Tomlin's comments.
What does it mean?
I knew you were going to do that. I'll win horse on me.
What does it mean? Oh, I've got my fingers pointing up. What does it mean if Mason starts over Mitch?
It means that Trubisky, they don't trust him to take care of the football. That is the number one goal. That's what Pickett was doing as his team got hot relative to their success after the bye. No turnovers in 4 straight games. Trubisky throws 3 in relief of Kenny Pickett. They lose that game in large part to those turnovers. And the whole structure of this offense, the way this team is built right now, is little to no margin for error, cannot give the football away. Again, the stats in terms of when they turn the ball over versus when they don't, very clear. A line in the sand there. And so that's what it would mean. They trust Rudolph to play a bit more within structure, probably a bit more conservatively overall, and to take care of the football.
What does it mean past 2022, if anything?
Probably nothing, because Rudolph is not going to be back, and Trubisky, Pittsburgh has control over what they want to do with him, but it's hard to see him in Pittsburgh in 2023.
Wouldn't it seem even less likely to see Trubisky in 2023 if he doesn't start over Rudolph?
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so it probably does mean something, because if Trubisky is basically becoming third string by the end of the year, then I don't see any way he comes back in 2023.
Right. I mean, unless you go to him and say, look, here's you're going to have to reduce that salary. I mean, either way, this team could afford to carry Mitch at his number, but would you?
Would I? No. I mean, I don't think Trubisky will want to be here, and it's the whole volunteer, not hostages thing.
Like Tomlin. Mariota, right?
Like Mariota, who apparently just left Atlanta. He's gone. I don't even know where he's at right now. Again, to go from starter, captain to bench, and then potentially even third string if Rudolph jumps him for this week, you just didn't work out. You wipe your hands. It does save some money, and that money can go elsewhere. You will have to sign a veteran backup quarterback, though. You can't have. It'll be Kenny Pickett by himself at the start of March, probably. And so they're going to have to add some vet behind Kenny Pickett.
Right. Okay. But about Pickett, I mean, we just don't know. We just kind of have to wait and see. And, obviously, are you worried at all about, first, we talked the other day how, that Mike Tomlin should kind of address the what transpired, as far as the protocol situation that allowed Kenny to go back in the game and then back out. Are you satisfied with what you know now, or no? After what Tom had to say, which wasn't much.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just recognize in this heightened awareness of 2022 and what happened with Tua, quarterback concussions in general, really receiving a lot of attention. What happened with Pickett was a bit unusual. Again, not accusing Pittsburgh of doing anything wrong, but there were some questions to be asked and answered. And yeah, I guess I'm satisfied. I mean, it doesn't sound like there's much more to say. If there is more to say and questions to be asked, and I assume the NFL would do that. But yeah, I'm moving on from that point.
And then obviously, what happened with Pickett now got trumped the other night by what happened with the Patriots, right?
Yeah, with Devontae Parker, which was a very scary moment, and credit to Nelson Aguilar for alerting. I don't know how everyone else misses that, but credit to Aguilar for stepping up.
Should there be some sort of, and look, I don't know the medical. I'm not even going to pretend to know the medical behind and the studies and all. I mean, I've obviously read a lot of reports and seen a lot of, kind of videos on concussions, all like that. But should there be I guess what I'm asking here is, because Kenny, they continually, evidently, or supposedly continue monitoring players that are cleared and go back in games, or so they say. Should there be something like the time that a player enters the initial testing, or for in game with a concussion, for like, okay, the clock starts. This guy, for one actual, not game time, but one actual hour or 45 minutes on the clock, cannot go back into the game, so we can monitor him in this period of time. Should there be, I guess what I'm asking is, should there be a mandatory kind of monitoring time of 30 minutes or whatnot? And I don't know what the studies say and all like that. Right. It might be different for every human being, for all I know. But would such a thing help?
I feel like, we need to get some billable hours for the NFL. We're rewriting the CBA these last couple of podcasts.
We really are.
It's a good point. I don't have the expertise either to talk about that. I would love to know how often these things happen where players initially cleared and then symptoms appear later. It feels like that's not a typically common occurrence in the NFL, but I don't know the data behind that, and data's going to have to drive some of those decisions. So understand the point. I just don't have the knowledge to really answer that.
Okay. I mean, this is going to be concussions in the NFL are always going to be a topic, though, right?
Sure, as they should be. And the NFL, frankly, ignored them for far too long, and they literally paid the price for some of that. And now they're doubling back to try to do a better job of that. And they have made progress, but as you said, as Monday night showed, there's still progress to be done.
Well, is Pickett an injury or concussion prone, blah, blah, blah concern at this point? Or is this just one of those things? Because look, I was thinking about this, and I'm gonna answer before I even let you answer.
No, go ahead.
For the fact that why I was kind of thinking about this. Man, you go back to 2004 with Ben Roethlisberger, and you remember some of those damn hits that he took. I mean, even kind of that coming out moment against the Browns in Ben's rookie season. If there was an independent kind of long story short, there's been times when probably Roethlisberger, even during his rookie season, probably could have been removed from a game,
sure.
And all like that. It wasn't, obviously the rules and the focus and all back then than there was now. I bet Ben would even probably tell you, man, there were a couple of times during my rookie season that I would have been ruled out of a game with a concussion. Is this any kind of a concern with him right now?
I mean, it's always alarming the way we talked about it with Pat Fryman with his, multiple concussions he suffered through the first 2 years. So there's always heightened attention to that, but concussions are so different for different people based on severity and symptoms, and it's all case by case. So, it's a worry, it's a thought, but ultimately, what do you do with that information? You can't treat him any differently once he's cleared. He's your quarterback. You're going to play him. And so there really isn't much of a different handling, I guess, of it whenever Pickett is cleared.
Mike Tomlin was asked, is there any concern with Kenny that this is his second time in the concussion protocol? He says, not for me, because I'm not a medical expert. I gained my position, my confidence, my levels of concern, any of the things that you would ask along those lines from the medical experts. I'm really comfortable in that. And several times on Tuesday, once again, he said, look, we're going to do what the medical experts tell us to do with Kenny Pickett. And that's what they did last time. And lo and behold, he was practicing on that Wednesday, right? We'll see. We'll see if that's the case today on this Wednesday.
And he was practicing in full that Wednesday, not even limited on the side. I mean, he was full go. And so we'll see if it's a repeat of that or if there's a different flavor to the protocol and Pickett working his way back. Where are you at when it comes to Trubisky, Rudolph? If Pickett is not cleared, if he cannot play, do you believe 100% Trubisky's the guy, or do you think there's a path for Rudolph to jump him?
I mean, I think there's a path. I mean, I wouldn't bet my house on it. Okay, because although this could just be Tomlin trying to be the nice guy here and not just say, look, you guys know Trubisky's our number 2 quarterback. I think to some degree, even though Mike Tomlin says, I'd rather say whoa than sick 'em. There was probably a little bit of him in that game that probably wanted to say whoa, whoa when it comes to Trubisky there. And I'm firmly convinced what we talked about the other day. Trubisky's in YOLO world right now. You only live once, and he's going to take some of these chances, I think, to try to make some plays. And I think the byproduct of that is he's kind of, unfortunate bad decision interceptions on his part. I think Kenny would have been a lot more conservative in that game. Do the Steelers win that game if Kenny plays the whole thing? That's another interesting topic of conversation.
Yeah, me and you with these hypotheticals. I mean, do I think Kenny throws 3 picks? Probably not, just based on his recent trend to play. But who the heck knows? Baltimore's a really good defense. It sounds like Tomlin listened to Ben's podcast on Monday, because he did invoke the whoa then sick 'em comment that Ben talked about. Tomlin did during his Tuesday presser when asked about, was Trubisky overly aggressive? And Tomlin, based on those comments, basically said, I don't mind him being aggressive. He's trying to make plays. And so that's the mentality we want to have. And so while I'm sure he didn't want Trubisky to throw 3 picks, it didn't seem like he was upset publicly, at least, at the idea of Trubisky trying to push the ball.
My money would be on Trubisky starting, plain and simple, but I would be conservative in the amount of money that I put on Trubisky starting.
I'm with you 100%. I did laugh at, and as you said, I think Tomlin maybe was trying to be a bit kind to Rudolph this holiday season when saying it's not 2 and 3 guys. It's 2 and 2A. I mean, that's just a funny way to phrase that. I bet you Rudolph does not feel like a 2A right now. Right. 2A is called number 3 when you don't dress on game days, but we'll have to see how things go this week.
And Rudolph's saying all the right things. I mean, the competitor of, like I said the other day, Rudolph probably says, y'all have at it. My stock's never been higher right now. But obviously there's, the gambler in every athlete is, I can improve my stock. So, in other words, I don't think Rudolph's over there saying, oh, no, y'all have at it. Don't put me in. He obviously would like to play, and he would probably be just as aggressive as Trubisky.
Plus, I mean, I don't know. I get the whole stock thing, but it's hard to have your stock higher after a year in which you did not play. If you get a game, if you get one game, you get one good start, win the game, and then go back to the bench. That's ideal. You get your tape,
right?
Still showing you're going to sling it, and then you build off of that when you become a free agent. So I bet you for a lot of reasons, Rudolph wants to play.
Right, and I mean, once again, I think it's more of an indictment, it's obvious it would be more of an indictment against Trubisky if Rudolph's chosen over Trubisky.
Oh, sure. Yeah, 100%. So we'll just have to see again. I still think Trubisky will be the guy, but Tomlin's answer certainly was not concrete. And so it opens the door to the conversation we're having right now.
There's absolutely no way Rudolph's back with this team in any way, shape, or form in 2023, right?
I can't see it. I'm sure Pittsburgh would like to have him back, but what isn't the incentive for Rudolph to want to be back after? He has not been, again, the NFL is an unfair business, but what's the incentive for him? He's not been treated fairly to, become the potential starter, to becoming third string and just kind of being kicked around.
Right. As soon as the gates open, he's running.
Yeah. It's like he's joining James Washington in the sense of we are leaving immediately and we're going to go try to find another job.
Right. Okay.
What else from Tomlin here? Talked about Trubisky, the woe, the Sikkim comments, talked about field positioning. I thought, Tomlin kind of opened up that press conference talking about Pittsburgh losing the field position battle. And he may have, maybe before he listened to Ben's podcast, he may have listened to your comments, Dave, about some of the holding calls on James Pierre and some of the other things aside from the obvious 17-yard punt that really affected field position in this game in Baltimore's favor. Well,
yeah, and look, let's congratulate them again on what a team loss that was, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to point it out that it was more than just what I said the other day. It was more than just the Presley Arvin 17-yard punt. There was the block field goal, which, by the way, that was enough to get Calais Campbell special teams player of the week. I would not have seen that coming for one play. Did Calais do something else in that game that I don't know about?
His stance was great. Every field goal block, he was looking pretty. No, I guess the competition was light.
Right. Obviously that was a huge play in the game, and effectively, yada yada, won the game, I guess, in so many words there. But yeah, it was, and we've talked about it. Where is all these guys that they have at the bottom end of the roster that are Danny Smith guys? What are they doing?
I do just wonder, how do you, and I'm sure Danny Smith has an answer if you were to ask him, how do you stop a 6'8" Calais Campbell from blocking the field goal? Like, what is the approach there?
If it was that easy, Dan McCullers would be in the NFL right now blocking field goals every week, right?
I guess, but there's an art to it, I'm sure. Campbell has a timing of when you shoot your hand and film study and what gap to be in. I just wonder, because it's not like Campbell's not really rushing.
Right, but even they admitted that this was kind of made on the fly with him and his special teams coach.
True. But he lines up in the A gap, he puts his hand up. What do you do? He's over the long snapper. I don't
know.
I don't know.
Punch him in the jejunum or something.
Yeah. Go with a low blow. I'm just curious. I'm sure there's an answer. I'm sure there's a strategy, and I guess it's trying to get hands on the guy and bump him and maybe get him off his path a little bit. But the dude's 6'8". It's like Shaq being out there.
Right. Okay. So what happens if you expand rosters by 3 players? Do you bring in a specialist field goal blocker that's 7'1"?
Yeah, just go to the G League and just go sign every center down there and have them. Stand. Again, I'm just curious to know. I'm sure there's an answer and there's things you can do, and Pittsburgh probably didn't do a good job there. But Campbell's blocked, I guess, 9 of them in his career for a reason because he's so good at it.
All right. And look, it was right for Mike Tomlin to address that. But and what do you think about his thoughts on the run defense?
They're pretty similar. Lately Tomlin's thoughts post-game, right after the game ends, versus what he says Tuesday are basically the same thing. I think he's literally said the phrase of, I just, same thoughts as what I had post-game, same thing. In terms of them wearing down, I think that's certainly part of it. I felt in the first quarter of that game, the run defense was not terrible. A couple plays early, backside pursuit, things like that. Pittsburgh's run defense held up, but I thought certainly as the game wore on, I'm with Tomlin. They totally wore down. I thought Ogunjobi in particular wore down pretty quickly in that game. And so, I'm with Tomlin there.
It's football, the ball, and this is kind of Tomlin was asked if he is alarmed that they were able to get what they needed in essentially that final drive. To back up, he was asked in the final series about stacking the box. Could they have done more there? I clipped all 3 pictures of right at the time the football snapped. It's not overly egregious in my opinion as far as the alignment and based on what they were facing. I suppose you can make the argument that you got no business having a middle of the a safety, basically playing man high, right?
Yeah.
In that situation. Could you play 0 in that situation and run blitz it?
Sure, you could. In hindsight, it's always 2020. So,
but if you blitz a guy like, because I think it wasn't Casey cut the middle of the field on those, but even what gap do you blitz them on? Does it even matter?
Right. And maybe there was the concern because they fake the jet run. If you have everybody else so tight and they run the jet receiver run, he gets the edge and that's ball game there. So you can go back. I mean, the video breakdown I did this morning on Steelers Depot, you guys can check out. It's a pretty long video, but it kind of talks about some missed assignments. It was some schematic problems, and also just to use a Tomlin phrase is the phrase I used in my video, just butt kicking. I thought Pittsburgh got their butt kicked against them.
Long story short, do you find anything egregious in what they did defensively, scheme wise, on those final 3 plays?
Schematically, not really. I just recognized throughout the entire game consistently the Ravens were running that gap scheme. They were gaining a gap. They were getting numbers. They did a good job to run against Pittsburgh's front. I just thought, a bit schematically, Baltimore had the advantage, but then just physically, I mean, when you're getting beat up the way you're getting beat up, the scheme doesn't matter as much because you can't get off a block. It doesn't really matter what you call.
Right. I mean, could the linebackers have been downhill more at the snap of the football? Possibly. If they were going to beat you through the air, they were going to beat you through the air with an easy completion. But at least you made the kid throw the football, in that scene. Everybody knew they were not throwing the football on that third down.
Sure. And that it's just frustrating because, I mean, it wasn't even a difficult conversion for them.
Right.
Gus Edwards wasn't even touched by the time he moved the sticks. They have their third string rookie quarterback in his first game. The run's coming. But again, they ran that gap scheme at the end of that game. They got numbers, and Pittsburgh couldn't get off of blocks.
I mean, you just have got – that's a situation where your guys have got to win up front.
Right. And that to that point, you could argue, well, then just really pack the box, bring Minka down, bring Casey down more, dare them to throw. If they throw and they complete it, then you say, good job, Baltimore. But you could argue that maybe Pittsburgh could have been a bit tighter there.
Okay, I mean, but what do you have? Minka up 3 more steps, and once again, Casey, where do you put the middle of the field safety in that?
I think you don't have a middle of the field safety. You move them right in the box, I guess. I don't know. I mean,
do you bring an extra off? Do you play goal line in the city?
Yeah.
In that situation, probably. But even it doesn't matter, because of the way the formation was,
Sure. Yeah. Again, all things to go back on. But the video I have, talked about some of the other schematic problems. I thought Baltimore did a good job of displacing some of the Steelers edge rushers and putting them, kind of taking them out of the run fit. And again, just schematically and certainly individually, Baltimore won the day.
Okay.
Let's see what else did Mike Tomlin have to say. That was about it. Said he had no problem with the hit that Roquan Smith had on Kenny Pickett, which I wouldn't expect him to say anything else because A, he'll get fined if he does, and B, I don't think it's that egregious of a moment by Roquan Smith.
Right.
There's a face mask, but you're not going to have a problem. I mean, it'd be for the slamming is where you might have a problem with it. But to me, I'm not too mad about that one.
We'll get our answer on Saturday for that.
Yeah, I mean, it would happen. He's not going to get fined for a face mask, so it's just really a matter of is it the slamming? Will that get a fine there?
Well, it's never been really about the slamming to me as much as it was the face mask. Be honest,
you get a fine for a face mask though?
I mean, is there fines for face masks now? I mean,
maybe the egregious ones where you're yanking a guy down, but that wasn't the case here. I mean, I think it should have been called. I think it was a missed call by the officials, but I don't think that would produce a fine. I think if he gets fined, it'll be for the way that he threw Kenny Pickett down.
Okay.
But we'll just see. I mean, we'll see. Saturday, as you said, will give us the answer. Anything else from Mike Tomlin that you wanted to mention?
No, I think we got most of it. Look, you got some clarity for people wondering why Pat Freiermuth only played 30-something snaps. He was not on the field for snaps 3 through 7, so maybe it happened somewhere in there. I mean, obviously he missed other snaps throughout the game as well too. But for him to be off the field that early, maybe that's when that foot injury happened with him. But Mike Tomlin said in so many words that in-game injury, but he was able to return, and thus we could probably expect Freiermuth on the injury report today.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be limited or not practice. To be honest, though, didn't notice. They didn't note a foot injury in that game. He played the same number of snap percentage, offensive snaps, as he did against Atlanta. I think 56%. So to me, it just felt like their rotation of tight ends.
Okay.
All right, let's go all 22 of this game. Rewatching this one, ugly as it was. Let's start with the Steelers offense. What were your thoughts there on the all 22 of that one?
Yeah, offensively, just kind of wondering why maybe they didn't try to run the football a little bit more than they did. It's kind of obvious why in the second half, because of the way the limited amount of possessions in the score was. I can understand that, but they did have some success in the game early. As far as that, I think they probably could have done a little bit of better job of getting Pickens maybe a few more targets in that game. I mean, you know me. I like the fact that they're able to push the football down the field. You go back and you look at the 3 interceptions in particular. Now that we've had time to look at it, it's not taking the blame off of Mitch Trubisky in the first one, but the whole Steven Sims and his route and how it should have been shallower, yada yada. It still was a very, very easy pick for Smith, right? Freiermuth, tough coming, was indeed jammed, held up a little bit coming out. The whole timing of that was just off, and and Trubisky was kind of locked in on him. It just kind of screams that could have been avoided by going somewhere else, maybe with the football there. The second pick was, and look, I mean, that's basically the same play they ran against the Eagles late in that game that Pickett got picked off on. There, just kind of the formation flip to the other side, and on that one, I think Freiermuth ran more of a nod kind of route, and then I think the set of the routes on one side might have been a little bit different there. But Patrick Queen said after the game that when they go 3-by-2 and Freiermuth's in the slot, he's running that over. And he was kind of the overhang on that other side anyway, and was able to read that, did not bite at all. I think Johnson was the guy on that other side, on that 2-by side over there. That didn't get his attention at all, and he basically just read Trubisky took him right to the football in that. So that was obviously one that Trubisky's got to look off or something to avoid that interception. It's just way too easy for Queen on that one. And the last one that really felt predetermined kind of throw there. And if he's going to throw that and it be predetermined based on coverage and yada yada, he's got to look off Williams better in the middle of the field and make it an opportunity where either he overthrows the football or his guy gets it, and he does not throw a can of corn to left field, which is essentially what that was there. So you can explain away maybe the first interception there, but that they're all on Trubisky the way I look at it there overall. And they, as we said the other day, they moved the football. They moved the football. It's just when they got that high red zone, just brutal. I mean, two interceptions and a blocked field goal. I mean, like it or not, that's the difference if you in your game overall. But as far as the X's and O's go, I think you did a great job, and we kind of questioned who was that sack on that early on, and there's several ways you can look at it as far as the rules of the blocking scheme might go there, but your look at it was based on how this team has blocked the double A-gap muggers in previous games here, and there's no reason to believe that they were going to go away from those rules. And by the way, Kevin Dotson says, "Oh, that's on me."
Right. That's forget what I said for a moment. Just listen to Kevin Dotson. And I understand some people could argue, well, he's just taking the blame, just kind of falling on the sword. Had he said, yeah, that's on me, we just got to communicate better, we'll get it cleaned up, and not really said much about it, you could probably have a better case for that. Dotson was very specific in what went wrong on that play. He said he didn't hear the middle digit in the play call that determines the blocking scheme. He slid the wrong way. He says he got to listen harder. I mean, he was very detailed in terms of exactly what went wrong. But on top of that, listen, on Monday's show, when we talked about that, I kind of pulled back and said, I don't know if that's on Dotson. I need to check the tape and kind of go through it. They ran the same exact play against the Bengals a couple weeks ago. And the way they've been blocking this thing is they allow the right DN free. They're going to try to throw hot off of him. It's not been working out well, but 100% that's on Dotson. So, I mean, you can argue about it all you want. But again, if you hate what I say, fine. Just listen to the guy. And he told you the answer.
And look, you had that out there before really the Dotson quote surfaced. So
right.
Because and anytime you do something like, especially with the offense, I mean, I have faced it from quarterbacks, Charlie Batch, and yeah. Look, I love Charlie, but within that, I told Charlie when I talked to him, there's some, I still differ with what Charlie thinks on a couple of these. And I think that's okay because nobody really knows. I mean, yeah, Charlie has a lot, obviously NFL quarterback and all, but I think there is some areas of gray where you don't really know for sure whether you played in the league or not. And look, anytime nowadays there's an offensive line brigade out there right now, and we think the world of Duke, right?
Oh yeah.
But there is a fraternity out there at each position group, specifically quarterback and offensive line, that feel like it's their duty to police anything out on Twitter, that goes with their position group. And Big Duke has worked, I think, with Kendrick Green, right? I mean, not Kendrick Green, Dotson.
Right. I believe
and they're going to run to those guys' defenses. And, I think even Trey Essex kind of backed off a little bit.
I think he now agrees that it was on Dotson.
Right. And look, you understand that there could be certain different rules in place on how things are handled.
Right. In that moment, the way that they're describing it being blocked is totally fair. Yeah, that's a valid way to do it. But all I care about is what do the Steelers ask of their guys to do? How is the actual call being called? Not the theoretical, how you could do it, how different teams do it. How do the Steelers do it under Pat Meyer? And I base that off of recent performance, recent tendency.
And what we do now and have done for years on the site and with film breakdown and all like that, we don't, it's not an attack on Kevin Dotson. It's just, we want to see what happened, who's to blame, why it happened, and use it all as a learning tool, because there's nothing better than learning the X's and O's, in my opinion, of football. You learn it you learn more and more every week. So it's not an attack on him or anything like that. It's just us trying to figure out, what happened.
Yeah. And that's just, my belief based on how they blocked that up in recent weeks. There are definitely times where the O-line gets too much blame. And you think about, remember when Yannick Ngakoue came in free and sacked Kenny Pickett against the Colts? Everyone's blaming Dan Moore for that. 100% not on Dan Moore. First, let's say it. That's not on Dan Moore. That's on the scheme. He's allowed to rush free. And in this case, just like that play, that edge rusher's allowed to rush free. They're blocking down. They're blocking inside out. And that's the way they scheme it up. And again, identical play, same mesh concept, same throw to the flat, to the boundary, to the back, trying to throw hot. That's what I base it. But just in the way that whenever the defense blows a coverage and you're trying to figure out what went wrong, you know as well as anybody else, whenever somebody asks me that, I say, let's go find an example of a similar situation and try to compare it to, because it's hard to determine when things go wrong just looking at plays in a vacuum. You have to find past history. That was my guiding light, so to speak, on that play. But regardless, with Dotson, it just to take it to him, I mean, again, it's one play, not trying to kill the guy, but it just, the mental mistakes are so frustrating with Kevin Dotson. I had the video just 2 weeks ago, I think it was, saying that Dotson to me is the most frustrating player on this team. Not that he's a bad player. I'm not frustrated. If he was bad, I wouldn't be frustrated because I would just say he's a bad player and he's being overwhelmed. He's a talented player that has really good moments, but you have so many down moments as well. That's where the frustration comes in. It's a bit of the Chase Claypool thing. Really physically gifted, really talented, a lot of above the neck type stuff, a lot of other things that frustrates you. And to me, if I'm starting to tweak this offensive line in 23, I am starting by replacing Dotson at left guard.
Sort of a Chris Kimoatu situation here, right? Where a lot of mental errors.
Yeah, maybe that's penalties. Is he penalized like Chemo was?
He wasn't penalized, I don't think, like Chemo, but, he has had his share, though, right?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that. I think he's kind of up there with Dan Moore. I think he was maybe second on the team. I think Dan Moore leads the team in penalties. I believe Dotson is second. I'm remembering my sack breakdown, at least entering this week. I haven't done the sack breakdown for the Ravens game, but
yeah, Kevin Dotson's right behind. It's Dan Moore, Kevin Dotson, James Daniels.
But how many is Daniels?
One behind Moore. It's 10 for Dan. Man, Dan Moore's got 10 penalties this year. Kevin Dotson has 9. And Dotson's are false start, holding, ineligible downfield, unnecessary roughness, false start, holding, and ineligible downfield, false start. You can can you excuse him for the ineligible downfield, or is that maybe just a mental error as well too?
And you'd have to look at the play, but you can probably excuse that because it's likely on the ball not getting out quick enough or something else happening.
Okay, but
that's still a lot.
10 for Dan, 9 for Dotson, it says 10 count for Dan, 1 decline, 9 for Dotson, 1 decline. Then you drop all the way down to James Daniels, 5, and then Deontay Johnson with 5. James Pierre, by the way, is up on the list with 4.
Ooh, yeah, he had one of them in the Ravens game there. That's what I was saying. I knew there was a drop off from more Dotson in that first tier than the rest were kind of in a different tier there. But anyway, with Dotson again. Talented guy. When it comes together, he's got the size, he's got the power, the anchor, but it's just above the neck. It's a mess. And that play got his quarterback hit. Hurt.
All right.
The interceptions. I mean, that third one, I thought that Trubisky threw was the most egregious in the sense that he led Marcus Williams right to the ball. But as Trubisky pointed out, they ran the same exact play on that 40-yarder to Deontay, and he did the exact same thing. Didn't look off the safety at all and just threw it in the bucket. So the throw wasn't very good. Really, I guess what you're saying there is if you're not going to look off the safety, you better be pinpoint with the throw.
Right.
And on the pick, he was not pinpoint.
Right.
His accuracy, the deep ball, he's aggressive, but his accuracy on his deep balls is pretty rough.
Right. And look, he's been aggressive. He has thrown it down the field.
Right.
He just hasn't completed.
Good at it, yeah. Anything else here for the offense? That was kind of my thoughts. I thought Pickens was. I mean, again, you could always give the guy more targets, but the dude had a couple of deep shots, a PI in the end zone. I mean, for a Z receiver, I was okay with the volume. I was happy to see a guy like Steven Sims just get the ball more, just to have him do something. On the field. And
look, and on that back shoulder to Pickens too, that kind of looked predetermined. But at some point, you got to put 50-50 balls to your players.
Yeah, that was 100% predetermined. I mean, Pickens is blanketed when Trubisky throws it, but you trust your guy to make a play because you go back to the summer, and that's what they did the whole summer, with Trubisky throwing contested balls to Pickens, and he made spectacular plays. And so there's a ton of trust there. And so I have no problem with that one.
I mean, the biggest thing, the talk about the offense overall, even though maybe they could have ran the football a little bit more in the first half, that kind of stuff. The biggest thing, the most glaring thing is the interceptions, obviously.
Sure. And while we can talk about that, you understand Trubisky being aggressive and wanting to push the ball, and it's hard to fault him for that. I think as he even had talked about and admitted, when you get in the red zone in tight games against Baltimore, you probably want to be more on the conservative side and let's risk it side, because points are so precious. A, for this offense, it still does not score much in general, 28th ranked scoring offense. And B, I mean, now it's 5 straight games have been 1 possession games against Baltimore. And it likely was going to be the same story as it played out Sunday. You don't want to throw that pick that cost your team those precious points.
All right, defensively, all 22. I mean, your breakdown on Steelers Depot on the defensive line against the run specifically tells the whole story here. Some of the errors, I think we're still kind of, and you showed the overhead all 22 view on the one scramble by Huntley. Mm-hmm. No, on one of the edge runs, I think by Gus Edwards.
Okay.
Was that Leal? Was it Edmonds? It's really hard to discern overall. Was Edmonds supposed to come inside there and fill the alley? Was he supposed to stay outside? Was he trying to do too much? And that obviously could have been a case of Edmonds saying, I'm going to go get that gap over there, instead of just, that's not my job, stay outside. Don't let this thing get to the outside here. So I think I think you might be more right in the aspect that maybe Edmonds is more to blame on that one that got outside there overall.
Yeah, the way that I try to comment a little bit, but basically I just said is that ball can't bounce, regardless of whose fault it is. That ball, Wormley spills it outside. You got a couple of guys there. That ball can't get outside, and so whoever it's on, Leal or Edmonds, regardless, that's an error by team defense. The
home run by Dobbins. I mean, that's Hayward trying to do too much, losing gap containment in there. I think Bush played that right. You just obviously would want to see him come off the block.
You think Jack was held on that play? Everyone on YouTube was yelling at me for Jack being held by Ricard. I didn't see it.
It's possible, but I mean, that's a pretty good truck hole anyway.
Yeah. Again, the nose tackle has just been a void. Adams has not played, well enough, and Alualu's on his last leg. And so you got Hayward picking up some nose tackle snaps, and that's not good for anybody. Not for Hayward, not for this defense.
Right. And look, they were just, with Ricard and Ben. What's the left guard that they had, or right guard?
Ben Cleveland.
Yeah, Ben Cleveland, right?
Or Ben Powers, or Ben Powers.
Who was the one? Who was the one that played that left guard that came in after Cologne?
Well, it was Cleveland and Cologne rotating, and then I think Ben Powers was their every down left guard.
Who was the right guard?
Cleveland.
Okay, Cleveland. Yeah, he had a pretty good game, I thought.
Yeah, which guy didn't up front? Yeah. They all mauled. I mean, I thought Ricard was their all-star. I thought even their tight ends getting involved. Josh Oliver, folding Robert Spillane and stuff like that. I thought all the linebackers were pretty poor in this game. I just thought Baltimore was more physical, not only just their O-line, but the fullbacks and their tight ends.
And look, there's a lot of blame to go around in that, but it was all up front in the front seven overall here with, not gap filling and just not getting off blocks. They got their butts kicked, as Mike Tomlin said. Now, is there anything else schematically that we talked about the final three runs and all like that? Is there anything schematically else that you want to talk about defensively from the all-22?
No, not really. Again, some of the gap runs, as you mentioned, some of the displacement of the edge guys, maybe some of the things Pittsburgh did with their safeties and one receiver looks, you could debate a little bit, but it's just
not what lost them the game. What lost them the game is they got their ass kicked on the line, not getting off blocks.
Exactly.
Within that, kind of a chicken and an egg kind of discussion here, though. I mean, they still only allowed 16 points, right?
Sure. I mean, it was a winnable game. I mean, obviously, if Pittsburgh doesn't make their mistakes offensively on special teams, there's a good chance they win that one. I
mean, how much, I mean, you let them run to, you can look at this from various different angles. You could have held them to 16 points and not give up so many rushing yards, or maybe if you do a little bit better against run, they have 13 instead of 16, I guess, there. I mean, you want to keep a team under 17 points, and they did that. And I'm not trying to excuse him here. I'm just trying to, where is the line? Look, in today's NFL, you're not going to just totally shut down a team, right?
Sure. But this was different because you knew Baltimore was going to run the ball, especially once Anthony Brown came in the game. You can't give up those runs. They're going to run the football.
Right. So is 16 – how many points was too many points in this game? 13?
I mean, I think it's less about that and just more about giving up 215 on the ground, just not acceptable, regardless of how many points you give up. And then there's a time of possession thing. It's not just about the points, but you think about the 8-minute drive Baltimore went on,
which was the key drive.
Yeah, which was the key drive, and they gave him a field goal and killed a lot of clock there. And so if you get off the field there, that could totally change the complexion of the game.
I guess what I'm getting at is where is the line drawn, as far as level of blame.
Yeah,
we're on the axis is the because look, I mean, you could like it or not, you could boil this thing down to the final 3 offensive plays that the Ravens had in this game. Obviously, you don't know what's going to transpire if you get a stop there on that drive. They weren't going to throw the effing football.
Sure, on any of those plays.
On any of those plays. So you have 3 plays to get off the field and give your offense plenty of time, regardless of what the transpiring punt is, to win the football game with a field goal.
Right. I mean, and not only to win the game, to save your season, a season-defining type game. Do you want to stay in this hunt a bit longer, or do you want to potentially be eliminated after this week? I think if some certain things happen this week, Pittsburgh could officially be eliminated from the playoffs. When was the last time that happened this early in a year?
Yeah.
And to get dominated, just for a sense of pride, to get dominated like that by Baltimore, your rival, just hurts a lot. And so, again, it's less about the points. Where do you put the blame? I'm not someone that's good at giving up blame and pie charts and here's 70%, 30%. Multiple things can be bad. You recognize 16 points. Okay, you can win that game. I'm not absolving the offense. I'm not absolving special teams. I'm not absolving defense. I'm talking about all of the issues those units had, and they all had issues.
All right, can we agree what I said kind of at the top of the show and really the other day? This might be the most complete team loss the team has had this year.
They've gotten their butt kicked pretty good by Buffalo and by Philadelphia, where nothing went right. But I think this one hurts more because it was such a winnable game. You weren't going to beat the Bills. You weren't going to beat the Eagles. And so from that aspect, again, it just comes down to a matter of pride. I mean, where is your pride?
I tell you, look at this team right now. A lot of holes on it. There's going to be a lot of holes on it this offseason. We've said that several times, and some of it goes back to there's no way you can't look back at the last couple of drafts,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they're a Swiss cheese roster. There's a lot of turnover. I've been saying for a while, a lot of turnover coming for a lot of reasons. Just losing season that's about to happen. New GM, new assistant GM, and just take my quick victory lap on something I talked about back in whenever it was the summer before the year began about one possession games. Pittsburgh's 4 and 5 in one possession games this year. In 2020, 2021, they were 15-4-1. That was the best record in football. And so you didn't feel like they were going to be able to sustain that kind of, winning ways in close games, partially without Ben and just partially the math of it all. It's hard to sustain and you kind of regress to the mean. And so back in the big reason why I picked this team to go 8-9 was me saying that I thought they'd be about a 500 team in one possession games, and that's not going to do them well. And they're 4 and 5, and that's basically where they're sitting right now.
My fears was that they weren't going to be able to run the football, and why I had them at 8-9 is I just didn't think the offense was going to be able to score points, which they haven't. I figured that Kenny Pickett would be in the saddle come the New Orleans game, and he was obviously a little bit before that. And my other fear was that the defense wasn't going to be as kind of advertised, And they haven't been.
Yeah, no, obviously no one saw the TJ Watt, injury coming and how much that changed the defense pretty dramatically when he wasn't around. But obviously, even with him against Baltimore, it was still poor.
Right.
So, any other thoughts here on terms of just rewatching this game?
No, I think we've covered it pretty good there.
Yeah, I think so too. So anything else you want to talk about? I wonder, I assume Pickett will not be speaking today. Will any quarterback? Or Rudolph spoke yesterday, I guess, or Monday or whenever it was. So we'll see maybe Trubisky speaking today and go from there, get the practice report. And obviously all eyes on Kenny Pickett's status. I mean, if he gets cleared but doesn't practice until Friday, do you play him then?
Well, didn't in so many words Mike Tomlin say that he has to practice, but I guess he didn't say how much he has to practice, right?
That, and then somebody said, if he's cleared, we'll pick it start. And Tomlin said yes, but I don't know if he was really thinking about practice situation in that because there's a rep component too. I just right. a lot of variables going on.
I think you want him to take all the. I think for him to start, I think you want him to take at least 80% of the reps during the week.
Well, what does that mean? I mean, does he have to be full on Wednesday, or can he be limited Wednesday and then full Thursday, Friday? I mean, I think
the thing is, we don't really know what limited means.
Well,
with them,
I think based on the way they reported, limited means you work in individual sessions. You're not part of the team sessions. Full means you're in team sessions, 11 on 11.
It's a slippery slope, I think, because you at nearly at all costs you want him to be able to play this week to get the experience.
Well, I think, but you wouldn't put him in a bad situation where he's not ready to succeed. I think he's got to be full by tomorrow, by Thursday, to get full Thursday, full Friday. If he's limited today, then okay, you can work with that.
All right. I mean, obviously, if he doesn't practice, full by Thursday, I don't think there's a way you can play him.
Yeah, right. So we'll see.
All right. Playoff scenarios, real quick. The Steelers can actually, believe it or not, be eliminated this week. If they lose to the Panthers, they'll be out with if New England wins, that's one way, or they will be out with a loss and a Jets win plus a Chargers win or tie. So that's the second scenario. The third scenario, if the Steelers lose to the Panthers, they'll be out with a Chargers win plus a Raiders tie, and the Raiders play the Patriots there. So if they win, they obviously stay alive, and that's probably the key thing that matters right now. So win, and you're still mathematically in this thing, even though everybody should understand right now the math is about the equivalent of my there's a lot of math that needs to go along with this.
Yeah, typically when you start things off by playoff scenarios, it doesn't end with this is how the Steelers can be eliminated in week 15. And so it's a weird conversation. But yeah, I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs. So it's really just a matter of when it's over, not a question of if it'll be over.
Should the Panthers be favored by, I think it's up to 2.5 points right now?
They're the home team, and they're 5-8. I mean, they're playing well under Steve Wilkes. They've won 3 of their last 4, and they just ran for 200. Had a big upset win over Seattle. So, I mean, I don't care about the lines too much, but yeah, I'm good with that. The Panthers have earned it.
Okay, I wouldn't have thought we'd be having this discussion.
No.
If there was a game that I thought the Steelers would probably be slam dunk to possibly win come the start of the season, it would have been this one. And here they are, 2.5 point consensus road dogs at the time we're recording this. Yeah,
I mean, I was 100% with you. I thought we all knew Matt Rule was not going to be there for that game, so you felt like okay, that their season's probably going to be just bad. But this is why I hate the preseason win-loss records, because none of it matters by week 2. Basically.
Every week changes any given Sunday based on how things can transpire in the NFL.
All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, how far are we into this thing today?
Hour 5-ish, so making decent time.
Let's go with Chuck Griffith here. Where did the Steelers go with the offensive line and free agency and the draft? Realizing the O-line has played better as of late, will Pat Myers return? And which lineman would you write in pen and which in pencil for 2023? There's no reason right now to think that Pat Myers won't be back, right? Is there enough reason to think that he won't be back?
I'm very confident Pat Meyer will return. The offensive line has improved, and they don't want 4 O-line coaches in 4 years.
All right. Who would we write in pen and in pencil right now? I think you can write Chukwuma Okorafor in pen. I think you can write James Daniel in pen. Who else? Mason Cole's going to be on this roster. The question is, will Mason Cole be the starter, I guess?
Those are erasable pens, right? I'll go middle ground and say erasable pen for Mason Cole.
Right.
Dan Moore would be in pencil, could be erased if you find a really top tier left tackle early in the draft, and Kevin Dotson gets a white out.
Well, he's definitely in pencil. In other words, you can erase him. So he's still going to be on the roster, though, Dotson.
Yeah, it could be a good backup, play left guard and right guard for you. So there's some value there. But, could he start? That's hard to me to envision Kevin Dotson starting next year.
In short, Chuck, I think you have to look at the realization that a couple of those, the left side could see new starters potentially, not guaranteed, but potentially in 2023.
Right. So we shall see.
Let's move forward here with Brandon. Other than Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Minka, is any player's spot as a starter truly safe entering the offseason when it comes to, I guess he says, the Steelers defense? Of course, it's not going to be a wholesale turnover. That's not practical. But inside linebacker, again, defensive line, you guys talk about cornerback via the draft and strong safety. Until Kenny gets his feet under him, this team's defense will have to drastically improve, right? He asked. Yeah, I'm on board with that. The Steelers defense has to drastically improve, and I think next season, look, you're not going to have 9 new starters on defense next season, but boy, it's probably going to be a lot of new starters on defense.
Yeah, I think you'll see turnover. So in terms of the starters guaranteed to return next year,
Cam Hayward,
TJ Watt,
Minka,
and Highsmith are the four.
Highsmith, right.
Are there any others to add? I think probably not, based on free agency, based on play. Miles Jack would be one under contract. You'd think he'd be around as the starter, just because if they replace Devin Bush, they're probably not going to be able to replace both inside linebackers.
I'm going to go ahead and say Cam Sutton. Yeah, I know he's not under contract, but okay. I'm going to go ahead and guarantee him being back as a starter.
Okay, I mean, obviously, if he's re-signed, then certainly
right.
we'll start. Just a matter of if he will. So that's fine.
But I mean, look, there's a lot of holes on this thing, man, especially on a defensive line and linebacker, really, because I mean, okay, you want to bring Devin Bush back on a minimum salary, have at it, but you better be looking for somebody to start over top of him.
I mean, it's all levels, though, because even in the secondary, what happens with Sutton? What happens with Witherspoon? What happens with Terrell Edmonds? I mean, there's a lot of question marks.
Can you ever remember the last time that there's been this much question about what next year's defense will look like?
Not since I've been doing this in the way that I've been doing it for Steelers Depot. I don't remember. Maybe I'm just misremembering. Time blurs, but short answer, no, I don't think so.
I mean, obviously, you'd like to have a guy like KZ back, but is that championship type move in that,
Right. No, point taken. So a ton of question marks at every single level for this defense.
Right. And there's less talk about who's going to be on this team on offense. It's just whether or not they can perform. Right.
Right. Yeah. They're the younger group. They're the more recent picks. And so most of those guys are under contract.
Let's see here. The duality of Mitch Trubisky from Rory Prunella. Hi, David Alex, longtime listener, maybe second-time emailer. That was tough to watch. I can't help but feel bad for Mitch, but for some reason, other than the obvious of helping the Steelers, I really want to see him succeed. He is uniquely athletic and can make some exciting plays with his legs and strong arm and fool you into thinking he is a starting caliber quarterback, but he'll inevitably make some awful decisions or throws if exposed long enough. Maybe someday he can have a Geno Smith-esque turnaround in his processing part of the game, but just seems like a tragic figure destined to make game-losing mistakes at this stage in his career. You guys are the best resource out there. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on this debacle of the game. Well, we've obviously at this point, Roy, we've given a lot of thoughts on the game. Look, Mitch is a very polarizing quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he's made some big plays. It's kind of defined his career. He's mobile. He can take shots. He can, drive the football downfield in moments and make some pretty decent level plays to remind you this guy was a former first-round pick. But then you have the other half of him, as the reader's pointing out, the duality part of that, then he frustrates the heck out of you. So maybe he can turn it around at some point, but won't be in Pittsburgh.
Look, I know it's a lot to ask for quarterback, for it to have a quarterback that can make some of these plays like a Patrick Mahomes and a Josh Allen and some of those things here. But man, You got to be able to push the football down the field at a higher rate. And
you can do that
within
the pocket. You can do that within the pocket, and not seeing that consistently enough in terms of the efficiency of it from Trubisky.
Right.
So, we'll see what the quarterback situation. The room probably looks different next year. Talk about the most change that could come offensively. It's going to be in that quarterback room, not with Kenny, of course, but Rudolph gone, Trubisky likely to be gone. They're going to have to add in, they're going to have 4 quarterbacks to take to camp. So there's 3 quarterbacks you're adding, probably futures contract, a veteran signing, and probably an undrafted free agent.
Right. All right, I think we got all the emails out of the way there, Alex. So you and I will work on trying to maybe get a Panthers beat writer lined up for the Friday show. By then, we'll obviously be talking more and more about that game and previewing that and whatever transpires with coordinator corner, roster moves, all that good stuff. Just the usual fare on Friday. More than likely there. So we've been trying to keep these shows under an hour and a half as of late. Hopefully you're enjoying that aspect of it, and we will be back on Friday. So you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, and hit the ad-free button. So within that, until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.